you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spiff overnight, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Ha! We're back live from my dining room, because that's just how it's got to be if we're going to get back on. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers on Freewheeling Friday. It's the return of the Pundit, July 24th. Polls are a little bit crazy right now. I know everybody wants to talk about that. I have some numbers that I want to share with you. When we were moving and doing this, I started this for a client, and then we started going into different blue districts, because really, where are all of these policies, where are they really in danger of taking place first, right? It'll start in the inner blue districts, cities, and then it will move out into the suburbs if they feel like they can get away with it, right? So we wanted to know, in AOC's district, in Rashida Tlaib's district, in Ilhan Omar's district, do these people support even people who elect them? Do they support defunding the police? Do they support even reducing their budgets? What is their top issue? What do they care about going into the election? Forget about battleground America. Forget about suburban America. If they pull this stuff off, they'll pull it off in the blue districts. And so we're gonna take a look. That's probably gonna be one of the first things we do, because I really want to show you guys that. And then also, it's Freewheeling Friday, so shoot in your comments and your questions, and we'll go over some of the polls, if you don't mind taking a second while I go and bring them up, and I'll share them on the screen with you. We'll go through them. All right. So I know some of the Fox polls came. My DMs have been blown up, and we'll talk about Florida specifically. Look, before I get into this, one word about Florida. If the poll does not have a Latino detail question, meaning, okay, which race or ethnicity best describes you? White, Caucasian, Hispanic, Latino, Black, African American, Asian, or other race. Maybe they break it down, Pacific Islander, whatever it may be. In Florida, if there is not a Latino detail question, and by that I mean when somebody picks Hispanic, they are funneled again off into, what are you specifically? Are you Cuban, Mexican, Venezuelan, Puerto Rican? If there is no Latino detail question in the poll, you could basically, I don't want to say toss it in the garbage, but toss it in the garbage. because you can't hope to weight properly for ethnicity, race, and ethnicity, let alone region and education and everything else that has to be done, because Hispanics in Florida are not monolithic. And if you see Donald Trump at 30% in a poll among Hispanics in Florida, it's because they don't have a Latino detail question. They don't know what they're doing. And for the last 3 cycles, those are the pollsters I've been telling to please stop embarrassing yourself, stop polling my state and making a fool of yourself. I know maybe your goal is not to be accurate. Maybe your goal is to put out a narrative, but you will be wrong. I will mock you at on the Wednesday after the election, and we'll just go through this all over again, I guess. I mean, but the bottom line is we have minimal sample sizes for a reason. And when we poll a big data poll, Florida is a big state. It is a big deal. It is really like 4 states wrapped into one. And you not only need to know how to properly weight and get a representative sample for Hispanics in the state, but you need to be able to do that regionally as well. So if you don't have a Latino detail question, how the hell do you know whether you're polling a Hispanic in Miami that's Cuban or Venezuelan versus a Puerto Rican in the I-4 corridor? You can't do it. And if you're not going to oversample them to make sure that you have a representative sample of Hispanics in Florida, you'll never get enough to know what Hispanics in the I-4 corridor are doing. You'll never get enough. 200 Hispanic responses is not enough. All right? We don't live in the same day and age. But if you want to make a fool out of yourself, knock yourself out. And on the Wednesday after the election, I will mock you. I will at your Twitter handle and say that you are damaging our industry, because you are. All right? If you're not being proactive here, and trying to, win back the public trust, I'm just going to have to come at you full-throated, attack this time around. It's just the way it's got to be, because you're killing us, man. You're killing us. And it's really starting to show in the polling this year. I didn't subscribe to social desirability bias in 2016. People just did not reach the audience correctly because they're using archaic data collection methods. There is no excuse for that now. And we use sometimes at least 2, if not 3, maybe even 4 different data collection modes in mixed mode surveys to reach everybody. And you are hurting us with these people. They don't want to talk. They don't want to type. They don't want to do anything. You text them to their cell phone. You send them a link to take an online survey. You call them live caller. They definitely don't want to talk to you. You give them the chance to have anonymity in an IVR interview. And it's really ridiculous. And Laura, she'll be with us the rest. I just saw she's on her way out. There's a lot to do over here. She'll be with us, in the upcoming week and to follow, because I know you guys have a lot of requests for her. She'll tell you it is not uncommon for us to get 60-40 women. Women are more likely to take surveys than men. That's just a reality. Now it's bad. 65, 70%. And we got to sample. We got enormous oversamples just to be able to make sure we know what men are thinking. It's crazy. And you know what? You guys are doing this. And by you guys, I'm talking about the pollsters who want to be cute. This is not what this industry was built for. Gross disservice you're doing to this country. European poll, my friends, I got friends who poll in Europe. They don't have these problems. Of course, the media has their own bias and they put their own pressure on pollsters. They have it made compared to us. I mean, this is really, you're killing us, guys. You're killing us. And it's starting to piss me off. Anyway, let's look at Rashida Tlaib's district, shall we? Like I said, I started this where we actually had a couple clients this year in this district. And then while I was moving, I'm like, run it. Let's just keep going. I want to know if this changes over time. And the reason why is because in the beginning, healthcare and coronavirus were major deals. Everything else were, and by that, it's wrapped in healthcare, of course, but, and the economy was like a distant second. After a while, the economy started to pull forward and we started seeing policing and crime, even education. Before this, it was like in blue districts I'm talking about. It was healthcare. Maybe the environment, was a strong fact. Surprisingly, if you look at national polls, but when you're in blue districts, you'll see the priorities are very different. And over the last maybe week before we left, it really started to change. policing and crime started to jump. The opposition to these policies started to really rise. And by that, I mean BLM. Like, people will tell you they support BLM. They know what the correct answer is to that question. They're not going to tell you, I don't support Black Lives Matters. But they're not going to say that. But then when you ask them about their actual agenda items at creators, nobody supports it. Nobody, even in blue districts. And then if you bear with me, I'll actually bring up some of the weighted samples, about 400 and something from the older survey, and you'll see that there's a real race going on over there. All right, so first of all, let's pull this up. All right, let me make sure I get the right one. There it is. That's public view. Let's see if I get it correctly. Yeah, I did. Okay, so this is the report that I generate. All right. And I will get into another program that we use. By the way, if anybody else get into, I'm a tipster. You know, I mean, I'll help out as many people as I can. If you're looking for a great way to crunch your data, I get no money for saying this. All right, just for the cute people out there, I get no money. There's no kickback. Market Site is who we use to crunch our data, to check our weighting variables, to make sure we're correct, to use to generate beautiful crosstabs, and to dig a little bit deeper when you're trying to get more granular into the data, right? So not just men. What are men thinking? Not just men, but men without college degrees, men who are Democrats without college degrees. It's endless. The possibilities are endless. And when we do, I will show you why Tlaib is, I mean, of course, she could still pull this out, of course. But the people who are undecided, the Democrats who are undecided, don't like her. Her approval rating overall in the district is not great. And I'll show you this in the raw, which is actually relatively close to the weighting. And, you know, and then we'll get into this and I'll show you who's undecided, what they look like. So AOC herself and the rest of the squad, they've had no real problems this time. Caruso did not mount a real challenge against her. It wasn't good. Brenda Jones, the neighborhood knows. The district knows Brenda Jones. The African-American voting bloc, they know Brenda Jones, and they like her. And Rashida Tlaib caught her and her supporters sleeping. That's how she got elected. It was a primary, low turnout. The African-American community that backed Brenda Jones did not get to the polls. And she beat her. And then, of course, it's a blue district, so she won. This time around, Brenda's coming back. And she wants her place back. And it's a fight. And I'm going to show you. All right. Let's scroll down. Thinking about the 2020 election, which issue would you say is most important to your vote? This is Michigan 13, folks. Michigan 13. As you can see here, the economy and jobs has now crept back into the top slot. Healthcare, and this has been relatively consistent over the last 5 weeks, which is how long, roughly, we've been polling this district nonstop. And healthcare started off, actually, the economy started off in a lead for the first 4 days. And then it went to healthcare. And then part of that was just growing larger samples. Here's a little shock to everybody. Larger samples give you a more accurate picture of what's going on. So if you have 400 responses that you collect in a district like this, a relatively large district, by the time you get to 6 or 8, you may notice that things are looking different. Shocker, because you got a larger sample. Okay. But anyway, over the time, and now we're looking at tracking over weeks and weeks, the economy and jobs pulled back ahead. Just under 34%. Healthcare, just under 33%. Very close. And we actually do a ranking too. We'll ask people not only what your top issue is, but rank it for us. And in the next question, you'll see that. Tell us on a scale from 1 to 7, 1 to 9, 1 to 10, how important would you rank these issues? And you'll notice why healthcare has a bit of an intensity edge over the economy and jobs. All right. So the rest of it, and we can go down healthcare. Look at where policing and crime is. When we started this almost a month and a half ago, policing and crime was at 6.7%. It is now up to 11%. Some of that, of course, is people who say, I hate what happened to George Floyd and I want to tear down the system. Of course, you're going to get some of that in there. But when we get to the question about whether or not you defund the police, whether or not you reduce police budget, you'll see that it's overwhelmingly opposed. Overwhelmingly. All right. In a blue district. All right. Environment and climate change is number 4, just under, with a little bit under 8%. All right. So that's no shocker. Very blue district. They do. If you live in a red district, that's going to come in low single digits. Education creeping up now. Creeping up. The environment and climate change, when policing and crime was a little bit lower, the environment and climate change was number 3. With education, a little bit lower than it is now. So it's creeping up as environment and climate change comes down. Terrorism, national security, under 5%, 4.4. Immigration, 4%. It's just not a big deal in a district like this. And I see the guys out there, all right, they could be burying the data line. If we glitch out, I'll be back. They warned me it could happen. It might, all right, and I'll come back. One of the drawbacks, look, we retreated to like Hallmark America, all right? Actually, we've been doing this, been planned for a while. But the downsides, the upside is you get to pick where you want to live and you get to build a house you want it to look like. The downside is that there's not a lot out here. So when you're the first one there, you got to deal with all of this stuff. But your neighbors will thank you for it later. All right, let's keep going. This is what I was talking about when I'm telling you we asked them to rank issues as well. And then we plot it as rank distribution. So even though more people picked the economy and jobs, when we do a rank distribution score, all right, healthcare comes out a little bit ahead. The overall rank is actually 1 for healthcare. The economy and jobs comes in 2, which means when people plotted it between 1 and 7, this is the order in which they fell. Immigration, again, at the bottom. Terrorism, national security, at the bottom. One thing I want you to note here, education is actually number 3. Republicans, earth to Republicans here, man. You want to appeal to more diverse voters. You want to appeal to more metro urban voters, minority voters. They care about education. And they're not particularly in love with teachers' unions. They don't care. They want their kids to have a decent shot at life, just like everybody else. Pandering is not the answer. Rational policy choices are the answer. There you have education right there, right under the economy and jobs. School choice is popular among these people, among these voters. Very popular. Everybody points to Ron DeSantis in Florida. There you go. There you have it. This is not rocket science. Like, they keep hiring the same idiots who lose elections. And I'm saying, if I'm a little bit over the top today, it's been what, guys? Almost 2 weeks. I got a lot on my mind and a lot on my chest. These people, they get tens of thousands of dollars a month from the same campaigns. Their buddies are running the same. The campaign managers just play musical chairs. They get their buddies who run polls and do this, and media placement companies on Fox and this and that. And they lose one election after the other. And they never learn a single thing. And yet somehow this is how Republicans hire people. Democrats are much smarter when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's just true. It's just true. Republicans are going to have to get out of their comfort zone if they want to appeal to these voters, which Donald Trump is definitely out of their comfort zone. He is going about it the right way. I just wish he would do more of it if he was trying to really make a serious push. Because I want 2 parties, if there are going to be 2 major parties in this country, both parties have to speak to all people. We just can't have what we have. You have the big media hate machine fracturing us every day. Both parties have to make an effort to speak to everybody. And Democrats, they make an effort to speak to white America. They're not very good at it when you look at where I am. There's Trump Pence signs everywhere out here. They raise them up right along with the American flag. That's I'm in an R31 district right now. Very different from where I came from, of course, but at least Democrats make that. Maybe they're not speaking the right issues, but they make that kind of effort. Republicans have got to make that effort too. All right, so you get the picture here. Let's move along because this is one right before the policing stuff. Do you support or oppose having a national health care plan known as Medicare for All, in which all Americans get their insurance from a single government plan? It's a blue district. It's very liberal. This is no shocker. 56% support it, 28% oppose it, and 16% are unsure. The first round that we ran, I think this was around like 52.5. I don't want to pull, I hate pulling numbers out of nowhere, but I want to say this was around like 52.5%. So this has gone up. And maybe that's not really a surprise because coronavirus has been such a big deal. We've asked in the past, and when you parse it out by union members, I'm not sure they really understand what this means for their collective bargaining plan. I don't want to say, I don't want to make a statement like people really don't get it, but there's clearly a chunk of voters who have insurance. They belong in a union. They say they support it. I'm not sure they understand what it means for their plan. And in the future, because we are, like I said, we're in some other blue districts, I'm going to devise some like series 2 or 3 more questions to try to understand whether or not they really get what they're asking for, All right, but let's move it along. It's a yes or no. All right. This again, too, when we wait, it gets even worse. This is Michigan 13. It's Democrat plus 32. Do you support or oppose calls to defund the police in the community where you live and replace police departments with social services? 47.5 oppose, which that came down a little bit, but it's always been in opposition. 30.6 support, and 22% are unsure or undecided. You're going to see, and I'm going to say this right now, and you're going to see why in a second. They are 22%. Some of them are lying. Okay? They're lying. This is social desirability bias right here on full display. Because the next question, do you support or oppose reducing the police budget for the police department in the community where you live? 54.1 oppose, 31.4 support, and 14.5% are unsure or undecided. You might notice, and not to give you a headache here, you might notice support was a little bit just pretty much right on the money, right? And you might notice that oppose is about 7 points off, a little bit more, roughly 7 points off. And the unsure, undecided is about 7 points off. So what you're seeing right there is that, again, I'm not trying to give you a headache. I just want to show you support for both of these policies is essentially unchanged between these questions. The only difference in the percentage of people who say they oppose reducing the police budget and defunding the police comes exactly from that unsure, undecided. So about 7% is telling us they're unsure, undecided, when frankly, we know damn well they oppose defunding the police. But that's in quotes. And that's the news of the day. That's the BLM catchphrase. They know the correct answer to that question. So they're going to say, you know what? I don't know. I'm undecided. Give them something less controversial, which is why we tailored this way. We designed this for this purpose, just to see. And this is not a surprise. This is less controversial. So people are less inclined to put themselves in the unsure, undecided category when we know damn well they oppose it. They just don't want to tell you that. All right, let's move down one more here. Generally speaking, or let's do 2 more. Generally speaking, do you approve or disapprove of the job Rashida Tlaib is doing in Congress? When you add this all up together, and this is actually, like I said, there's some weighting we did with the, I got to add, I think it's like another 200 and something responses to the overall in-market site. I'll add whatever is the newer responses. It's called data append. I'll append it to the data set that is fueling the crosstabs and the charts that we have in market site. I got to add a little bit more. Looking at this right now, I don't suspect it'll change very much, but we're looking at an overall approval rating of about 43% in this set. When we add it all up, it's going to be, I want to say, between 42 and 45. Rashida Tlaib is not popular, not even in this very blue district. And I think I may have a screenshot. And if I do, I'll upload it and show it to you. Because when you look at the people who approve or disapprove of her, and like I said, about getting real granular, it's why I love MarketSite. Get real granular and you look at it. Who's undecided? How many of that percentage of undecided vote, which is a lot, and you'll see in a minute, how many of that undecided vote strongly disapproves of her? Somewhat disapproves of her, is unsure, and then whatever the combined approval rating. It's way lopsided against her. So you have a big chunk of the electorate who is still undecided. It's starting to tick down now. It started at about a third, but it's now down in the latest to around like 20-something%. So people are deciding. And they're going with Brenda Jones, by the way. That's my point. So it's a fight. She's got, and she knows it. Media is not paying any attention to this. I cannot imagine I'm the only one polling these districts. I can't buy it. Especially with the controversy that just happened. I cannot believe I am the only one polling these districts. I don't buy it. I think some things you see and some things you don't. Anyway, moving ahead here. So these are favorables and unfavorables of the Republican candidates that are running. Overwhelmingly, David Dudenhofer is the most popular Republican candidate in this. I don't want to get too much into this because it's not, for other reasons, it's not ethical for me to get into debates over it. Overwhelmingly, and then when we weight that, it's even more because Dudenhofer's been around a long time in this district. Even a nice chunk of Democrats like him. So let's skirt to the race. I want to get to the race. Here we go. All right. This is the most recent raw. If the Democratic primary for U.S. Congress were held today, for whom would you vote? Brenda Jones has what looks to be about a 3-point lead right now. Rashida Tlaib, when we started, she started out with a 9-point lead. Everything that has been going on, two things have been happening. The news have changed, and undecideds are starting to decide. You can still see a massive, even in this latest one, there's still 28% undecided. It's a big number. This is Rashida's strengths. When we weight this, Rashida Tlaib has a 5-point lead. It's probably actually now, looking at this new stuff right here, it's probably 3 now. It's close. Overall, two things have been happening. People are deciding, and those undecideds don't like her. And number two, the news changed, right? The cycle, things that have happening changed. She got into that little tissy hiccup with the police chief over there. Here's her strengths, though. She has a more diverse coalition. Rashida Tlaib has the support of the people who say that they do support defunding the police, that they do want to reduce the police budget. Where does that come from? Younger minorities and educated white liberals. Brenda Jones and the opposition to those policies. Support for Brenda Jones and the opposition to those policies are both being fueled by everyday African Americans in the community who don't have a graduate degree, who don't have even a bachelor's degree. They work, they vote, they want their community safe. And then, of course, this district is 50-something% African American, so it's a huge deal. but among the white voters that are Republican and among the white voters who are not educated, if they're Democrats, they go with Brenda Jones. If they're younger and more younger minorities and more educated upper crust liberals, they go with Rashida Tlaib. Pretty interesting dynamic, right? The problem Rashida has and why she could be in danger of losing, first of all, it depends who goes out and votes, right? Of course. But secondly, the people who are undecided, she better hope they stay home. She better just hope they stay home. It's so badly lopsided. And in fact, I'm going to X this out and bear with me for a second. Let me see if I can actually pull up that screenshot here. Oh, yes. Let me see. I'll have to upload it, but I think I got it. I just want to make sure that I show you. There's by ethnicity, and here's by approval. It's going to look a little whack, but you'll still be able to see it. All right. I just wanted to, ethnicity is cool too. We should show you that. Support by ethnicity. Okay. This is by race ethnicity. There is, I'm looking for that approval one because that one, there it is. Boom. Okay. Let's pull this up. Let it upload. Let it do its thing. And while I'm waiting for it, I'm going to also add race or ethnicity so you can see what I'm talking about. You know, I mean, you think out there by Detroit, and there are some other districts that are a lot like this. And the difference, however, is that there hasn't been candidates toward these squad members who were particularly well known in the community and that had more than just being well known. They had some kind of infrastructure there before, like Brenda does. And that is Rashida's real problem here. Is this approval? Bang. I mean, it overlays me. All right. But, oh well. This is without this new set that I just added to you. This I pulled before we left, but it's going to tell the same tale. All right. This is the Democratic primary parsing out by approval rating for Rashida Tlaib. Unsure, undecided in light blue is also in the what you see this bar graph. All right. Columns up and down, bars left to right. The unsure, undecided vote, you look by color. All right. Forget about that for a second. If you look at Brenda Jones's support, 36% strongly approve of Rashida Tlaib still backing Brenda Jones. 33% somewhat approve. Obviously, those who say they strongly disapprove are not going almost. It's a statistically insignificant enough to plot. That's why there's nothing there for Rashida Tlaib. The purple section is the number or the percentage that strongly disapprove of her that are backing Brenda Jones. She had some voting for her, but we were talking about single-digit responses. It was nil. Statistically not measurable. So it will not go up on the graph. And that's how we do things. All right. And I'm sure there's other people, but it would be so thin you would never see it. All right. So we don't even do that when we put together reports. Those who are unsure and undecided about Rashida Tlaib, 32% going with Brenda Jones. Somewhat disapprove of Rashida Tlaib, 43% going with Brenda Jones. So you see the problem for Rashida Tlaib here, okay? She is getting, of course, 54% of those who strongly approve of her, and she will probably get that 11% that's still unsure and undecided. We know this. She'll get, or at least she'll get 8 out of the 11. Just looking at how it's breaking down right now. She's getting 51% of those who somewhat approve. There are 16% left for them to fight over. But you can see that Brenda's getting a third of that anyway right now. 14% and change she's getting of somewhat disapprove. 43%, one for each, Brenda, and unsure, undecided. So when that 43% breaks, who do you think it's going to go to? And then you have 17% going to Rashida Tlaib that are unsure, undecided about her job approval. That's a problem. This is a big problem for her. She better, like, you know, they always say, tell me who's going to vote, and I'll tell you who's going to win the election. Well, that is never more true than what we're seeing right now. Holy crud, it's 11:35 already. Should I take it? I'm just, I got so much going on here. I'll take a break in a second. Let's go by race. I don't want to take a break. I've been gone too long. All right. We'll go through this, Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook. Don't forget to like People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. Subscribe to People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. And of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily with a digital subscription online. Moving along. I'll take a real break in a second. I just want to go by race. All right. Here we go. So here is the primary by race. Now, a lot of this, again, statistically insignificant. We do have Hispanics in this district, of course. You will see that Brenda Jones is getting like 4%, I think, or something. So it's very small. If it's outside of the margin, which I believe this one is 4.4 right now, that's why it's not showing up. But you will see that it's like breaks it down 75 for Rashid, 25 for unsure, undecided. It really doesn't, because it's always going to round to 100. That's how this works. That's just how the software works. That's why you see that. It's really about 73, 23, 4 or something. But it's statistically insignificant, so you're not going to see it. 55% of the district, Black and African American in the voter file. Brenda Jones is taking half of that vote. Boom, right off the jump. The older voters that are Black or African American go for Brenda Jones. The younger voters below the age, really, 35 or below, 40, even 45 would be you could say they go for Rashida Tlaib. All right. And then, of course, you see the white liberal backing Rashida Tlaib over Brenda Jones. It's like unbelievable. There's one thing about white liberals I'll just never get over. They feel so bad for minorities. They feel so bad that they'll think for them. I mean, it's unbelievable. Look at the disconnect here, folks. Look at the disconnect. Black voters, half already, are going with Brenda Jones. 31% are going for Rashida Tlaib. Yet those 39% that are unsure and undecided right there of the white vote, which is a small vote in this district, especially in a Democratic primary, because, the 20% of Republicans or whatever it is, I'd have to look in the voter file, that they obviously make up more white than anything else on the Republican side. So you're talking about a small section of the electorate in the Democratic primary for sure. But more than a third have picked Rashida Tlaib. 4 in 10, of course, are still undecided. They don't approve of Rashida Tlaib by, I think it's like the remaining undecided vote. White liberals do approve of Rashida Tlaib in this district. But in the when we're talking about just who remains undecided, Rashida Tlaib has a good chance of taking maybe 40% of that, what remains. But Rashida Tlaib is clearly going to carry the white liberal vote. Is it possible something changes heavily in that break? Yeah, it is. Because so much of that unsure vote is disapproves of her. So it is possible. But then you see the Hispanic vote of, 25% that remains. That'll more heavily go for Brenda. If I had to predict right now, I'd say it would more heavily go for Brenda Jones, because Rashida Tlaib is basically maxed out. Those are younger Hispanics who say they're going to vote for her. The undecideds, they don't approve of the job she's doing by majority. So Brenda Jones will probably get the lion's share of them. And then same is true of the Asian or other race category. What you see with Rashida Tlaib right now, like I said, she has a more diverse, younger coalition than Brenda Jones does. But in a 55% Black African-American district, it's not bad to be sitting where Brenda Jones is sitting right now. And when we wait and play with all the numbers, like I said, before I added this last group that's been tracking for like a week now, it was like Tlaib +5. I imagine that's going to be +3 or maybe even lower. I really don't want to guess, but I got to take this off. the bottom line is, she's in trouble. She's in trouble. So it depends where, who comes out and votes. Really. I mean, if younger people come out, she'll be in a, that's the new living room, Lemon Minty. That's the new living room. So I wish I could show, you know what? Can I see if I can show you this? I wonder if I could show you the if I tip it. Look at that. That's Laura all day. That's not me. That's Laura all day. See the call for ceilings? We'll get back in business here. One thing I'm going to miss about, several. I love Florida, and I'm always going to love it. I just needed seasonal changes. I'm from the North. Fell in love with the South when I was in the Army. I did. You learn that everything you hear about the South is completely incorrect. It's just not true. It's a bunch of garbage BS that the North feeds itself to make themselves feel better about, we won the war. I mean, it's a very, very serious elitism up there, and they look down on the South. That's absolutely true. And then when you get in the military, you learn, that none of that is true. The way of life is totally different. It's a shame that we don't know more about each other than we should. Like, we're supposed to be the United States of America, and yet we know nothing about each other. We know nothing about each other. And it's a real shame, because you really can't be a nation like this. You can't. It doesn't work. Benedict Anderson, folks, Imagine Communities. Remember that episode? We have to have shared glory, shared suffering, shared culture, language, geography. I mean, I didn't write the book on nation. Benedict Anderson did. And we have nothing of that anymore. We have none of it. It's a real shame. All right. I don't want to get off topic. Yeah, it is. When you hear Laura, you guys can give her kudos for that. Some of the color patterns, I was like, sitting in the design center with the builder. I'm like, I don't know about this. And she's trying to give me, don't worry, your wife knows what she's doing. It's going to be beautiful. I would have chosen, I guess I'm safer than I always thought of myself as kind of like a bold guy. I don't know, I'm definitely a risk taker. But when it comes to stuff like this, I am not. I'm like, just make the house this, outside that. And she's like, splashing colors, accent walls. I'm like, oh God, this is going to look horrific. And it didn't. It looks gorgeous. She was right. I was wrong. And now I'm just shutting my mouth up. Just go do what you got to do. You know better than me, apparently. The only contribution I have to outside is that I always wanted a forest green, but a specific kind of vinyl siding. It looks more like Cape Cod-ish, like shore-like. I'm a shore guy. I've always been, and this is a shore area. But so I wanted that mixed in with the stonework that was done. And there's also accenting. And she went berserk. She said, okay, we'll take the grain and I'll go do the rest. I was like, oh my God, I just want a green, but it looked beautiful. She did. I am learning to just shut my mouth and let her roll with it, because she was like born for this. I was not. I would have picked a black or gray roof, like a guy, right? Shingles, black, kind of grayish, like slate color. She picked what's called heather blend, and it's like red. The whole damn thing pops. You can see it from a half a mile away. It looks beautiful, So yeah, the district, it's the district we moved to is like R30, R31, very, very heavily Republican, lots of military too. That's why. So, I love it. Everyone's been so nice. They really have. I'm going to look over Jim. I see your question. I'm going to take a real quick break. It is still Freewheeling Friday, guys, and get your questions in. What you guys want to talk about, we'll talk about it. And Monday we'll return with the 2 hour. I'm going to go over an hour, but Monday we'll return with the regular 2 hour programming, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. All right. And I would have returned. The plan was Tuesday, but when you're the first one out in an area, they just did. Look, I know everybody, it's been hot, so I don't want to give the guys too hard of a time, but it didn't work. We had data lines run in the house so we can hardwire where we're going for, if let's say I have to do it in the house like I do today, One thing I'm gonna miss about Florida, the office, and I'll always love it, and I'll always be back there. I'm never gonna leave, that's for sure. But I really miss the office, PPD's offices, and they were broken down into suites like PPD, big data pole. I'm gonna miss that. I really am. And it was just, it's your first. It was like your first place. Your first is something. You get sentimental about it. I'm really gonna miss it. But we'll find, and we are in the process. Everything looks like a Hallmark town here. I'm like, oh my God, my realtor sending me, the same realtor I work with now, sending me new places for the office. I'm like, whoa, this looks like a Hallmark movie. It's really cool. And so, and it's cheaper than where we were, that's for damn sure. All right, I'm going to take a real quick break. I'll come back. I'll answer Jim's question. We'll get into everybody else's questions if you got them. Hang tight. Listen to Bad Habit by the Grammy considered band Bowen. And I'll be back after this 2-minute break.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We're back from the break, live from my dining room. Let's answer some questions on Freewheeling Friday. Jim, you're first, like I said, bang. All right, now that par scale is gone, is New Mexico going to remain a unicorn? Furthermore, what, if any, changes do you see coming to the Trump campaign's messaging strategy? I have to invoke Larry Schweikert here, and we were talking the other day while I was in Ashley Furniture. Look, any furniture store. I'm like, looking to see if anybody can give any. Coronavirus knocks everything out, so it's like 6 to 8 to 8 to 10. You can thank the shutdown crew for that. If you're looking for stuff like I am and you can't get it. But there are some states where I think the polling is missing something, and we just started to dip our toe into New Hampshire, which is very similar to what we're seeing. Larry has been talking about, Rich, this youth vote could be really down. You talk about, what does that mean for Albuquerque? What does that mean for Denver and, other places like that in New Hampshire, where the left relies heavily on the youth vote. It could be a real problem. In New Hampshire right now, about 26% of voters 18 to 29 say that they are 100% certain to vote and that they're enthusiastic. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. I haven't gotten into New Mexico, but if you look at one thing I think could be the talk of this election after November is over, whether Trump wins or loses, is how Trump slipped among white voters and how he's gained among minority voters. In some of these areas, Donald Trump is really starting to approach, and I don't know specifically about New Mexico because I haven't polled it, but Trump is really starting to approach like George W. Bush levels with the Hispanic vote in polling. He's definitely stronger than any other Republican candidate among black voters right now. I know some other polls show something different. Everybody's going to have something different. I'm telling you what we're finding. I have seen in the last 3 election cycles, I've seen white voters stray from Republican candidates in early polling, especially in the summer. Only around mid-October, late October, the very last week or two, to race back to the Republican candidate. That happened in 2016. Trump was not, getting Hillary down. We were really looking at, she gets around 36, 38%. Trump is in trouble. But she eventually started to slip below 35 among white voters. And that was a big problem. Biden is doing better than her among white voters, but he's doing far worse than her with minorities. And in some of these states, or you look at New Mexico, it could be like in 2016, it was a lot closer than people thought. So was Colorado. That could be, so let's say this turns out to be a real pro-Trump election. And I know people are, oh God, the polls are crazy, right? They were crazy in 2016 too, folks. I hate to remind everybody, but Hillary led in Ohio for ever until the end. Even Monmouth, I don't think Monmouth ever had Trump in the lead, even in their last poll. I think Iowa was the only state they were going to get, Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting a bing, but yeah, I have to ignore that because that was serious about my dog ran away before we left. I don't want to get into it right now, but he was found. It's been a little hectic. Anybody who's lost an animal knows, but we're trying to just do the best thing for him. And somebody binged me right now and flashed on my screen and threw me off because animals are like family. Anyway, but a state like New Mexico could be, if it's a real pro-Trump, let's say the race really starts headed in Trump's way. If youth turnout coupled with Trump's that those minority increases hold, there could be some shockers. And I think New Mexico is a unicorn, and I think there's going to be a lot of work to do. However, all of these college campuses are not going, many of them are not going to have on-site courses. And that anyone who has been to college or anyone who's been in politics, college voters are very hard to get to vote. The way they get them really in the end to vote is by setting up actual stations there and prodding them to vote. If they're not there to do that, Larry could be right. And there could be a catastrophic polling miss, a catastrophic one. Bad. You look at New Hampshire as another state. I was talking to a pollster friend. He just finished polling New Hampshire, which is why I got my I wanted to get in there. He's got Trump up by 3. And I don't know if I have his permission to use his name. I'll ask him later and I'll tell you who it is on Monday. But he's got Trump up by 3. And one of the main reasons, well, there's a few. One, Biden's not making inroads with those working class voters that everybody said Hillary would win or would pull back to the Democratic Party. Did not. And now we're here that Biden will pull back into the Democratic Party. Number one, that's not happening. And number two, the 18 to 29 vote as a share of the electorate is shrinking below 2016 levels. They're using a likely voter model like we use a likely voter model. The media polls you're seeing right now are of registered voters, and they're out of the realm of reality. I'm sorry. It's just not going to be D plus 11. It's not going to be D plus 13. And unless you're using a likely voter model, I don't even know where you'd come up with that, because I showed you guys on 2-3 weeks ago, the voter file hasn't changed much since then. They update every 2 weeks to a month, depending on the state. It's D+4 nationally. D+4. That's it. And if you're not using a voter screen and you come up with more than that, then that is response bias. Textbook. Democrats are taking polls, Republicans are not. It is textbook response bias. Mitt Romney was never ahead of Barack Obama in 2012. After that first debate, it was Romney +4 in Pew because they reached more Republicans. Romney had a good debate performance. Democrats did not want to talk. Republicans did. And there were more Republicans in the sample than there were with the previous Pew poll. So I would answer the question, Jim. I think Colorado, you still have university issues there. I think you'd see, when we're talking about Hispanic heavy Midwest states, I think you would see that bear out in a state like Colorado first. Then New Mexico would be like the real, oh my God, this is a catastrophe for Joe Biden and the Democrats. Young voters did not vote. All right. At that point, we would be like, oh my God, he's getting creamed. Kind of like it was in 2016, only it would be worse. It would be worse. And then, you have that in New Hampshire. You have that really, it's all over the place. In many battleground states, they really rely on these youth voters. And if there's even not even what we're measuring now, if, as Larry says, 10, 20, 30%, it's catastrophic for Democrats, because that also dips into their white vote share. So a lot of that white vote is not just the suburban white housewife that the media talks about all the time. The total white vote support for any given Democratic candidate is what heavily contributes to that are white voters 18 to 20. And if they're not there, and then Donald Trump holds that minority increase, it could be, I know what the polls say now, it could be just a bloodbath. It would be bad, very bad. So while they're trying to hold this quasi kind of election, Donald Trump canceled the convention in Jacksonville, if you guys saw, it could backfire on them over that, in that one. And by the way, Fox News, you need to give credit to Larry Schweikert for that segment you did. I saw you straight robbed him right off his Twitter feed. If you're not going to call him for an interview, at least put the screenshots up from his timeline that you took verbatim, the numbers off of Larry's timeline. All right. That, Fox is like, it's a brave new world over at Fox, folks. A brave new world. They would never think to call and have somebody like Larry on, or even, me for that matter. But they'll look at your timeline and take your ideas real nice. Fox does suck. That's all I got to say about that. Everybody always thinks I'm going to defend Fox News or something. There's no defending Fox News over here. I know entirely too many girls that worked at Fox News to defend them. Like I've always said, they pretend like they're the Hallmark Channel of cable news. They're so full of crap. Anyway, let's move it along. All right. There was another great question there about, okay. Oof. I don't ever you know what? I'll come back to that. Let's go with Liz first. Then Irish girl, I see your question. It's a good question. I just, I'll get into it in a second. I'll answer yours, Irish girl. Just give me a second to kind of ponder on how I'm going to talk about that. I just, I don't like talking. I don't like impugning anyone's reputation unless I know they're up to something. You can't deny the results from those two pollsters. You can't. But I'll get into that one in a second. Let's go with Liz's first. Did you see Tucker Carlson last night? What do you think about his take on voter dissatisfaction and how it will influence November 3rd for Donald Trump? So I didn't see it, but everyone in my family loves Tucker. They got to see it. I was outside trying to keep the sod alive and the seed in the back to grow in the middle of the summer. Anybody who knows anything about landscaping, it doesn't. So I'm actually doing a good job, shockingly. So I missed Tucker, but I got it. It does. A lot of this stuff that you'll hear about in the news from the news cycle, from one day to another, the 24-hour news cycle is hogwash. It just doesn't matter. That's not what decides elections. Fundamentals decide elections. And of course, the mood of the electorate, voter dissatisfaction or satisfaction, it does matter. That is what sunk Hillary Clinton. They liked Barack Obama, but they didn't like the direction the country was going in. It's the exact opposite of Donald Trump. A lot of Americans don't like Donald Trump, but they didn't vote for him because they liked him. They voted for him because they thought he had the right vision and the right experience, and was a big thing about Trump was that he was independent. That won over a lot of people in Michigan, well, everywhere. But I mean, in states that we saw him carry that Republicans could never manage to carry, that was a big deal for them. You know what? Donald Trump can't be bought. He can't be bought. So if you want real change, you have to find somebody who's independent of the system. That was a big talking point for him. The economy could save Donald Trump, and they know that. And that's why, because in the end, people are going to say to themselves, do I really want to course correct and try something different here if the numbers keep up going the way they're going? And if you guys didn't see jobless claims the other day, they ticked actually up a little bit. That's part of this. If you guys are avid show watchers, then you know that I told you guys this would happen. And when even we started the show, remember Tim, he was on, and we used to have our fights over this. I mean, good fight. I mean, people should not always agree about everything. It wasn't fights, but disagreements. I was right. This is not going to stop. There's going to be persistently high unemployment claims for two reasons. The White House gave local officials cover with those initial CDC guidelines to do something that was frankly ahistorical and shut down economies in the arrogant hope, in the arrogant thinking that we could stop a virus from spreading through the population, which is like really, really ridiculous, right? But the coronavirus fears are fueling that dissatisfaction, along with some of the chaos we're seeing on the streets. That's up to Trump is the answer to that. I think Tucker, unlike that 24/7 news coverage I was telling you about, Tucker is trying to highlight some of those big picture items that do decide elections. And if people, they just blame the president. I mean, that's just the sad truth about it. It doesn't always matter to the non-hyper political person. It's the governors who shut down the economy. It's the mayors who aren't getting control of the city. In the end, a large group of Americans the buck stops with the president, with them. It's one person. It makes it very easy to blame. It's a simple way to go about it. And that's unfortunately just true. So he needs to turn some of these things around. He really does. Because there are some states that things are screwy this time. In 2016, Wisconsin was the first one to be called. Speaking of Larry, he'll tell you, I did not believe the numbers in Wisconsin. It was like Hillary +6 all the way up until September. And then things started to tighten, and I didn't believe it. I just didn't. Larry called me the day before. He's like, what's the final one? And I gave it to him, and I'm like, I'm just wrong. I'm wrong, Larry. I think she's going to carry Wisconsin. And I was wrong about who was going to carry Wisconsin. This time around, that large chunk of independent voters that truly are persuadable, they're looking at that stuff that Liz just brought up, the voter dissatisfaction, just the overall mood in the country right now, what's going on, and that's hurting Donald Trump. You look at places like Pennsylvania, and the Fox polls, I'm not even going to comment on them. They're crazy. They're out of their minds. Out of their minds. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one polling Pennsylvania and showing that Donald Trump is stronger right now in Pennsylvania than he is in Wisconsin. There are other pollsters that are coming up with the same thing. Change.org is a left-wing polling outfit. I mean, Change or whatever, Change polls. They're left-wing polling. They have Trump ahead by 4 in Pennsylvania. We're not quite there. I mean, Pennsylvania will be decided by a small margin if it's that close. I don't think a Republican can win Pennsylvania by 4 points. They can win it, but I don't know about 4 points. And right now he's even stronger in Michigan than he is in Wisconsin. Maybe some of that irons out. and it turns out like 2016. But right now, there's just some really screwy things going on. And I think it has a lot to do with what Liz is talking about. In Michigan, there are less, in Michigan and Pennsylvania, there are a lot less truly independent voters than there are in Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, it could be less than 20% in any given election year. It's stunning, I know. Democrats have made gains in those suburban areas that we focused on during the voter file analysis. And what you always hear about in the media, and I'm talking about specifically in Pennsylvania, Montgomery, Bucks, right? But overall, the entire state, they've lost. They've lost advantage. It's like another 80,000. And that's because places that they used to do better. Barack Obama carried Erie County twice. Donald Trump carried it. They have continued to erode in places out in Western Pennsylvania, other working class areas. So what Trump, in a state like Pennsylvania, what we're seeing is what Trump has lost because of those overall voter dissatisfaction issues that Liz's questions surrounded, that really impacts those specific voters that the media harps over. Okay. But in a state like Pennsylvania, he's offset that. Biden not only hasn't made any gains, even in Bidentown, they've actually eroded further. And the overall result is a net loss for Democrats. And the polls are just, they're not showing that. They're not picking that up. You know, that's a really good, Karen's got another really good question, and maybe I'll pull up the old article that I wrote on it. But let's see, it was Joyce's, right? Or Irish girl. About Trafalgar and Democracy Institute. Look, Democracy Institute is the only pollster, unless I'm unaware of somebody else. Yeah, the only group that had both, because they poll internationally, that called Brexit, you know, and called 2016. Unless I'm missing somebody else. Some of this stuff, these are like the pollsters the media loves to hate. Patrick, too, is another one. Or I was calling John Cahaley. If I butchered your name, Cahaley, my bad. But these are like the pollsters the media loves to hate. Matt Bevin just did a great interview with him for Real Clear Politics. You just can't argue with his results. Even in 2018, modeling had it for DeSantis. Modeling had it for Rick Scott. Our own polling, the very final week, had DeSantis down to Andrew Gillum by 4 points because of this massive number of undecided voters. Big social desirability bias factor. Now that I go back and look at it, they didn't want to say they were going to vote for Ron DeSantis. They were like, you know, it's a black gubernatorial candidate. The media was making him out to be the favorite to win that race. In Pinellas, Monroe, even Hispanics in the I-4 corridor. And of course, black voters in Broward County, they didn't, and by the way, in the northeastern part of the state, they didn't want to say, I'm going to vote for Ron DeSantis. And if you guys go back and look at Big Data poll and look at the last publicly released poll we did, is that last public one, I believe, it was in the summer, you'll see DeSantis at like 18%, 19% of the black vote. And the exit polls, the voter analysis showed he actually took 18% of the female black vote. Maybe a little high, maybe they were a little bit off. But the bottom line is, those were people who did not want to say, you know, that he, you know, they would vote for him. All right. So it, you know, you can't argue with the results. You just can't. Trafalgar was right in 2016. They made the case about the shy Trump voter that I just thought was a little bit over exaggerated. You know, I mean, I think if you just reach people right with the correct data collection modes, you could reach them, and that the media refuses to do that. Live caller polling is a lot of money. They make a lot of money to do it. It's the most expensive mode. It's a cash cow for them. And it's an old status quo kind of thing. It's hard to like break those traditions. But this time around, he's right. I mean, I can see it in my own. It's these people don't want to talk. And when you do get them, they're like afraid to talk to you, you know, or afraid to tell you the truth. There aren't this many undecided people in New Hampshire. Maybe in New Hampshire, actually. That's a bad state to pick, but it's pretty much across the board. Getting huge numbers of undecideds. They're really not undecided. And you even saw it in a very blue district in the beginning of the show. Those people don't support defunding the police. They're just afraid to tell you that. So they say unsure, undecided. It's still a 20-point margin against it. But then you ask them whether or not you support reducing the budgets and putting it towards social services. And you get the real number, 54, 55 in a blue district. And the difference between the support for those two questions is exactly the difference between the unsure, undecideds between those two questions. So it's people saying, I'm not sure if I support defunding the police. I really don't know what the proper answer is for that. The next question, no, I don't support reducing their budgets. So it's there. I don't know how you could argue it's not. At this point, to me, you're just lying. You're just lying. And you're hurting us even further. You're just hurting us. People have to have trust in this. Otherwise, the polls can't be right. It becomes this like death spiral of distrust and inaccuracy. A vicious cycle that turns into a death spiral. You get something wrong, voters distrust it. Voters distrust it. They don't talk to pollsters. They don't talk to or tell them the truth. Then the pollster gets things wrong. Then they further distrust. It's terrible. What we're in is just like this terrible downward spiral. And there's these firms out there that are just like raking it in and don't give a damn. I got 20 grand from NBC. What the hell do I care? I'm going to go work for Joe Biden now anyway. And that's another thing. The NBC pollster should not be polling for Hillary Clinton. Am I the only one left who doesn't do this crap? If I poll a state for a client, you're not going to see it on the election model. The state will be shaded gray or something. Sorry. Conflict of interest. Jeez, man. You want to shut the economy down, but you take every dollar you get, right? Everybody, I get it. Everybody else has to deal with a shutdown economy. Because you're running IVR and you're running call centers in your basement for 20 grand a month. It's not hurting you any, right? Sick of these people, man. Really. Sick of them. Let's get to another question. Sometimes, Charles, sometimes I'm sure I said the city, we're in North Carolina now. I'm sure I said the city at some point, but, yeah. So Jim, just to clarify that, Larry Schweiker 2 weeks ago put out an article about the potential for a decline in the youth vote. And then when that article came out, I think it was on the American Spectator. When it came out, he did a thread on it on Twitter, and he fished around to see who may or may not be interested in talking about it. No takers, of course. Yet then it ends up on a segment on Fox News. It was like their original thought. There isn't an original thought in the collective head of big media. There isn't an original thought out there. They scour Twitter, they scour Facebook, they watch these shows. They have nothing. They hate citizen journalism, they hate citizen punditry, but they scour everybody's social media, hoping to hunt for an original thought because they don't have a single one in their brain. And they should have credited him for that. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. I can't tell you. Not just to others, many, many others. They take that crap and they pretend like it's theirs. And that's it. Let's see. What else we got here? We got a lot of stuff. So the answer to that, Irish Girl, is, you can't argue with their results. In 2018, with Trafalgar, when we take the polls and put them into the modeling, We saw Florida race real quick to DeSantis. Those undecided people started to break. And when they did, they broke heavily. So we knew that some of them were just lying. They were going to vote for him because typically they wouldn't break heavily for the loser like that. It just not, it can happen, but it's just not typical. Something was going on there. And then when Trafalgar's poll came out, it was DeSantis +3. I was looking at some of the stuff and we did include it, but I had asked him for a little clarification on I think there was some demographic that was missing, and it doesn't really help us if we don't have it because the modeling is not just headline numbers. The pollster's headline number, and when it comes to modeling anyway, does not matter as much as the breaks that you'll see inside the polling. So the white vote, whatever it may be, white vote, by race, ethnicity, by education. That's how we really model things out. When a pollster comes out with their numbers, we actually don't give a damn what they think the top line number is. That has nothing to do with it. What matters is inside the poll, because you could give the same data set to 4 different pollsters and they'll give you 4 different results. There's no, that's just the way it is. And with actually Nate Cohen, I think it was, did a great job in the New York Times back in 2016. He did that. I think it was him. He showed that. Here's the same data set. Let me give it to 4 or 5 or 6 different pollsters and how many results you'll get differently. That's because the pollster is interpreting who they think will vote, who they think will not vote, how much of the electorate is this, that, the other. I mean, a lot of it is up to their interpretation. So modeling, we don't give a damn what their interpretation is. What did you find with the white vote? What did you find with non-college educated? That is how we model. And in 2018, their last Florida poll did not give us a lot of demographic stuff. We asked for clarification. And I'm back. All right, you guys there? I told you that. Roro says, oh, don't you dare do it again. Don't you dare. All right. I saw the truck too out the corner and I'm like, oh no, don't you do it. Don't you do it. But it did it. All right. But we are back for now. So you know what? I'll answer like 2 more questions and then we'll come back. All right. Monday. This should all be cleared up anyway by Monday. So let's get to who's still asking a question. Always at a good part. Yeah, to stick around. Did it stop? Yeah, it stopped. Internet in the boonies, baby. And it's not quite the boonies. It's just that it's a new street. And they temporarily ran it from like another place really far. So far, the guy came out to bury the initial data line and was like, they didn't tell me it was this far. I'm not going to do this. And he turned around and went back. So they had to put in a thing, put a box closer. So my neighbors, well, my eventual neighbors will thank me because I had to deal with all this crap first. But, you know, it still works. All right. That's a really good question. So I'm going to take this last one here. And if I missed any of you guys, I'll go back, I'll look. And on Monday, if I miss something, you know, we always leave extra time. But Trafalgar asked, how do you think your neighbor's going to vote? And the question is, how did we find hidden Trump voters? How were your questions phrased? All right. Let me go back to my old questionnaire. And what we did in 2016 was a little bit different. We just felt that if we polled using a different methodology and different data collection methods, that we would find these voters. And the difference, what we did, well, one of them, Laura, thank God she's not listening. She hates it when I tell too many things. But all right, what we did was ask people, did you vote in any election held by a state, local, or federal entity in the last 10 years? And any given time, at any given time, and it was huge samples back in 2016, if you guys remember, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. At any given time, 8 to 12% of the sample said no. They had not, and they weren't young. It's not like these were new elections. They just didn't think their vote mattered. And when Donald Trump came around, they changed their mind. He killed her on these questions. When we would ask these people and find 10%, you know, on average of the electorate, he crushed her on it. It was like 90-10 for Trump. So these were voters that had not voted in years, were not new voters in the sense that they're young, so they're new, and they just are eligible now. They just turned 18. It wasn't that. It was that they just gave up on the political system. They just quit. They thought it didn't work for them. And when Trump came around, he gave them this like renewed sense that the system maybe could work for them. And that, you know, they had gotten, their neighborhoods were like plundered on trade, right? They were plundered on immigration. And no matter who they voted for, Republicans, Democrats, it just didn't matter. Nothing ever changed. Their community never got better. It just didn't matter. And in the end, they voted for Trump and they voted for him heavily. And those pollsters, if they found them, they would look at their voter record. And we asked, by the way, that was the first question. And then we would ask follow-ups to try to like really, you know, make sure they were truly voters. Because typically we'll go back in the voter file and we'll look and we'll say, does this person say they're going to vote, but they never vote? The voters that got screened out of big media polls, which I suggest maybe is happening again. I don't know. I'd have to see their data sets. They were screened out in 2016. Big media outlets, if they found them, which a lot of times they didn't, if they found them, they would get screened out. They're not going to vote. They're not in likely voter model. They're gone. They're registered voter polls. They just removed them because they view, even though they shouldn't, because that's should be included in a likely voter model, they did it and they would remove them. And you'd get these crazy samples, you know, Hillary by 8, D plus 11 or whatever, you know, and the ABC Washington Post tracking poll was a great example of that. And then even some of them, once Trump began to gain in those registered voter polls towards the end of the cycle, which is what, if I get cut off again, the one thing I want you to take away from the show, and I will go over this more in detail on Monday, these polls don't matter right now. There are certain things that do matter. There are certain questions you can ask to discern voter mood and how things could go and what the overall fundamentals of the race are going to be. What is the narrative? What are the justifications? Big media pollsters don't ask those questions. They don't matter. Michael Dukakis was way ahead of George Herbert Walker Bush right now. We will go over this much more in detail. And I did this in 2016 to explain to people. You know, you'd have Dana Perino and others on Fox and others on CNN. Nobody has ever been this far behind this late in the game and pulled back ahead. That was false. That is not true. Not to mention you're comparing apples to oranges, because back then it was like Gallup and a few media outlets. Gallup was the gold standard. Gallup doesn't horse race poll anymore. So it's apples to oranges. Now we have too many polls and not enough pollsters. And if you take away anything from this show, these polls don't matter. And what we'll go over much more in the following week is I'm going to take what I wrote in 2016. I'm going to take all of those tables. I think I went back to Truman Dewey. I'm not kidding. It was that far back. And I'm going to add 2016. And we'll go over it again because I hear the same nonsense this year. Nobody's ever been this far behind. That's bullcrap. That is not true. Not true at all. They don't matter. Even that Labor Day mark, which used to be the mark, that Labor Day mark is not even, it's a different world now. It's a very different world. In 2016, it really took a few weeks after Labor Day before we started to get a really clear picture. All right. So anyway, I'm going to get going here. All right. I know it's, only 12:30, but we're going to do a 2-hour show on Monday. Okay. So thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks. Don't forget to subscribe. Somebody's ringing. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel before you go. Don't forget to like the page PPD on Facebook. And of course, the ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD on the website, on digital subscriptions. All right. And next week, I will bring Miss Laura on, I promise, and we'll go back to doing the 2-hour Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to noon Eastern Standard Time. I missed you, folks, and thanks for coming back on the first Freewheeling Friday, and we will see you again on Monday. All right? All the best. Have a good weekend. Have a safe weekend. Talk to you on Monday.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to 3 or 4 nights to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow